السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه واجعلنا ممن يستمعون قولا فيتبعون أحسنه وادخلنا برحمتك في عبادك الصالحين. Dear brothers and sisters, welcome to part 2 of our series, The Diseases of the Heart. And I'd like to start by quickly reviewing what we talked about last week. Okay, so last week we started talking about the importance of the heart. We started talking about the importance of the heart, okay, and why this is such an important matter, right? And we said that when we talk about the heart, we're talking about the spiritual heart. Okay, we're not talking about the physical heart that's pumping blood. We're talking about the spiritual heart. And we talked about the hadith of Abu Hurairah when he said that the Prophet ﷺ said that the first people who will be judged, the first 3 people will be judged and will be thrown in the hellfire, are 3 people who, when I asked you guys, you said that they're great people, right? They were great from the outside, but from the inside they were sick, right? Their hearts were sick, and even their hearts were maybe dead. And then we mentioned the hadith where a person will come on the day of judgment with a lot of good deeds, and all of it will be gone. Why? Because his heart was sick. Okay? And then we talked about the heart and the mind, and the relationship between both of them. How the heart is the one that gets the final word. The heart is the one that commands. And how the Prophet ﷺ called it Malik, the king. And how the limbs are the soldiers of the king. And when the king says do this, the soldiers will do that. And if we learned that if the king is sick, then the limbs will be sick. Right? And then we talked about how as Muslims we should prioritize the health of our heart, our spiritual heart, more than our bodies. Why? Because we'll talk about it, because that's where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks. That is the place where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks. And then our deeds, right? And then we talked about the types of hearts. We said there was 4 types of hearts. We said the heart of the disbeliever, the heart of the hypocrite, the heart of the believer, and then there's the heart that has a mix of hypocrisy and iman. It has a mix of hypocrisy and iman, and whichever one it keeps leaning to, it will take over. It will take over. And then we finished with how does the heart get sick? Right? We finished with that hadith, and I want to continue from there, inshallah, bi'idhnillah. We're going to talk more about how the heart gets sick, and today also we want to talk about what are some of the signs. What are some of the signs of a sick heart? Right? So now we're going to start examining ourselves. How do we know if our hearts are sick? Inshallah, we're going to talk about that, and we'll probably finish there. So continuing from the hadith from last week, which was the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he said, تُعْرَضُ الْفِتَنُ عَلَى الْقُلُوبِ كَعَرْضِ الْحَصِيرِ عُودًا عُودًا. That fitan, okay, are presented in front of the hearts. عُودًا عُودًا. We said like the reed mat, right, stick by stick, right? And it comes in front of the heart, and then the heart either takes it or rejects it. If it takes it and absorbs it, a black dot will be put on the heart. And if it rejects it, a white dot will be put on the heart. Right? Until the hearts become 2 hearts. Either one heart that is bright and shiny and illuminating with iman, and that is the heart of the believer, and that heart will be able to reject any fitna that comes to it. Yeah? Fitna will come and it will reject it. And that's the heart that we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us. And the second heart is the one that is almost all dark, and there's a bit of whiteness in it, but it's mixed, and the darkness has taken over. And this one, really, it doesn't take any good. And it does whatever it desires. It does whatever it desires. Now, let's talk about how exactly does the heart get sick. And I want to switch now over to our body. Let's talk about our body. when we talk about a sickness, and just for the sake of example, when you look at, for example, the literature for cancer, when you look at the literature for cancer, and this is something that I've personally researched, they say that people get cancer for 3 reasons, right? The first reason, something deficient in the DNA, which is something in the genes. The second reason is toxicity entering the body. So the body becomes very toxic, right? And the third reason is malnutrition. The body is not getting enough nutrition, okay? And it's interesting actually that the first one, okay, a lot of the medical literature will say that this one, we don't have control over it, right? We don't have control over it, but when it comes to toxicity, we can actually prevent things from entering our body. We're the ones who are deciding, except breathing, filthy air and things like that. Other than that, we're the ones who decide what goes into our body. And nutrition also, we're the ones who decide, are we going to eat good food or bad food, right? And so those are the things that we have control over. And actually, even some people say now that we can actually, depending on what we eat, it can affect our DNA. It can affect our DNA. Now, when we talk about the heart, when we talk about our heart, when you look at the hadith, it's talking about a fitna comes, okay? A fitna comes, and a person decides whether to take that or not. If he takes it, it's as if he put in toxins into his body. He's putting toxins into his heart. So then that heart becomes dirty. It has a black dot, okay? Now, that's not the only thing. So you have the heart, and fitan are coming, right? These tests are coming for the heart, and the person, let's say he accepts that, and he has a black dot on his heart, right? Now, a person, the other way that the heart can actually heal is that a person will do a good deed. Now in this hadith, the nice thing that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned here is that if the person rejects the fitna, then a white dot will be put on his heart, right? So that's the first thing that affects the heart that's coming in, is these fitan, these trials that this person is tested with every day. The second thing that will affect the heart is, what are you feeding the heart, right? And so we said that the body, we feed it food so it can become strong and stay alive, right? What's the food of the heart? What's the food of the heart, right? And that's another topic, but some of the things like the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, dhikrullah, Quran, one of the best things that will feed the heart and will make the heart stronger. Salah, all the good deeds that you can think of, these are things that feed the heart. And the heart needs it, right? And so every day there's this struggle. Black dot is put, and then if you do a good deed, then there's a white dot. A fitna comes, you reject it, and then there's a white dot. So this is going on the whole time, right? And that's why it's so important for a person that when he does fall into a sin, and all of us are going to fall into sin, that he goes back and repents. So he makes sure that the darkness doesn't take over. The darkness doesn't take over. Now, let's talk about the J word, jihad. And here, what I mean by jihad is jihad al-nafs, right? That struggle that a person has inside of himself, right? And this happens to us every day. And this, by consensus of many of the ulama, is the most important one, right? Because if you can't overcome yourself, you can't overcome an enemy, right? And so here the person, every day he's being tested. Every day things are coming up, and he has to win these battles. Every day there's these battles. From the morning, from the minute you wake up, and then you go to work, or you go to school, and you're on the bus or the train, and you're driving, everything, you're watching TV, you're being bombarded with things, right? And so you are having this struggle, right? Whether you accept it or reject it. This is where it comes down to you. This is where it comes down to you. And this is where the person is struggling every day, and this is where the strength of the person is shown. So this is where, a person can say, you know what, I'm a strong person, right? And some people might go and say, I go to the gym, 3 times a week, 4 times a week, they got some big muscles, and they're claiming that they're very strong people, right? But how many people, right, 4:15 a.m., and the adhan comes up, Allahu Akbar, right? How many people are too weak to even lift the blanket off their back, right? How many people can't even lift a blanket, right? What's the point of all those muscles? What's the point of all that working out if you can't even get up for Fajr, right? And that's the strength of the heart, right? It's not just the body that needs strength, the heart needs strength. And the heart needs to be, we have to give it nutrition every day, right? We have to give it dhikrullah, we have to give it Quran, we have to do a lot of good deeds so that heart is very strong. Their heart is very strong. And I'm sure many of us have tried it, maybe someone, the last thing they did in the day is maybe a sin, and they slept on it, and they found it very difficult to get up, right? And another day, they slept, reading Quran, and it was so much easier to get up, right? Even though they might have slept 1 hour, maybe they might have slept 2 hours, right? Why? Because one of the things that we don't realize is that these fitan are coming, right? And sometimes people might think, okay, I watched something haram, or I did something haram, and that's the end of it, right? But these things are being stored in your head and in your heart, right? You might go to sleep, right? You might watch something filthy or you hear something filthy. You close your computer, your phone is closed, but when you go to sleep, these images and things are going in your head, right? These things are stamped on your heart. Nuktatun sawda, the Prophet said, like a black dot, right? It doesn't leave. It's not going to leave unless that person makes tawbah. So if he does accept that fitna, right, and he does it, and of course what the evidence of accepting it is doing it, the person does it, accepts it and does it, then that thing stays on the heart. But if he repents, it's going to go, right? So it's really important that the person is always keeping up with that, is always keeping up, and that struggle, right, between the nafs, that person has to always try to win it over. And subhanAllah, so many things, like even, for example, someone who's struggling to quit cigarettes, right? His head might tell him the information he has, will tell him that this is wrong, and he knows it's wrong, right? But his heart won't let it go, because it loves that thing, right? And so he has to struggle, right? And subhanAllah, if you think about it, step back for a second and think about it, a person might not be strong enough to defeat himself on a piece of cigarette, right? What about the bigger struggles in his life, right? And this is where we see that a lot of us, we really have to kind of sit down and look in the mirror and look at a lot of the, faults that we have, right? There's a lot of work to do for each one of us, right? But usually what do people do? We're always, we got like bachelor degree in pointing fingers at people, right? We're experts at that. But we really forget about ourselves. So now in this hadith, the word used is fitna. And last time I forgot to kind of talk about the word fitna. And the word fitna in Arabic, right? These fitan that they're being kind of put in front of us, fitna comes from the word fatana, which is to burn something, right? And in Arabic, fattan is someone who's like a goldsmith, someone who kind of works with metals and things like that. And so what does he do? Basically, he takes this metal and puts it through this intensive heat, right? That tests for the metal to mold it in the way that he wants, right? That's what a goldsmith does. And so what a fitna does, a fitna is like a trial, a test, right? A test, right, whether good or evil, to see what the person will do with it. And so these fitan will mold that person according to what he does with it into a better person or a worse person, right? A fitna comes, that person rejects it, then that person will become a better person. A fitna comes and he accepts it, then that person has fallen behind. And of course fitan, as the ulama have mentioned, fitan are from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also fitan can come from shaitan. Yeah, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya bani Adam, la yaftinannakum ash-shaytan. Right? And the fitna of shaitan is to misguide the person. And as the ulama mentioned, there's two types of fitnas. Okay, there's two types of trials. The first one they call it shubha. Yeah, fitna to shubha. And what that means, it's a fitna of doubt and misunderstanding. Shubha is doubt and misunderstanding. And an example of that will be, for example, someone has a misunderstanding or doubt in his deen. But then he might doubt the Day of Judgment, right? His iman is so low, right, and he's done so many sins that now things start getting blurry. And then he'll start asking, is there really a Day of Judgment? Does Allah really exist? And we see people even leaving the religion, right? We see even people leaving the religion. So these shubuhat are very dangerous. These diseases of the heart, these shubuhat, these doubts and misunderstandings are very dangerous, right? Someone will, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take some wealth from him, and he will say, why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala disgrace me? Thinking that, if Allah gives, it's a proof that Allah loves a person, which is not true. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the worst people a lot of wealth, right? If that was true, that the wealth is a proof of Allah's love, then Fir'aun is the most loved person, right? But that's not true. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives and takes, right? Depending on each person, depending on what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written for that person, right? So these doubts, these shubuhat, this is one type of fitna, okay? The other type of fitna is shahwa, right? We've heard this word many times. Basically like a desire or a temptation, like lust and things like that. These are shahawat, things that like people want, like tama and things like that. People want like a lot of money and things like that. Greed. These would be like shahawat, right? So the fitnas are either shubha, which is a doubt and misunderstanding, and shahwa, which is a desire and temptation. So these are the types of fitan. On the same topic, another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, which is similar to the previous hadith, he said, when the believer commits a sin, a black spot appears on his heart, like the previous hadith. If he repents and gives up that sin, and seeks forgiveness, his heart will be polished, right? So one of the things that the ulama recommend is that when a person, as soon as he does a sin, right, first thing they should do, and this is in another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, the one who does makes wudu, like a good wudu, and prays 2 rak'ahs and asks for forgiveness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives him. Very beautiful hadith. He's forgiven. It's like a guarantee. Person does a sin, goes and makes wudu, prays 2 rak'ahs, asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive him. Okay? So continuing on this hadith, if he asks for forgiveness, his heart will be polished, it will be clean. That black dot will be taken off. Okay? But if the sin increases, and sometimes, and this is one of the traps of shaitan, right? That he doesn't whisper in your heart, yeah, الَّذِي يُوَسْوِسُ فِي صُدُورِ النَّاسِ, who's that? It's Iblis. He doesn't whisper, something big first. He'll whisper something small. Just take one look. Oh, then take another look. And then a third look. And then the fourth look becomes easier. And the fifth look becomes easier, right? And he takes you step by step, right? And then he gets you. And so the hadith is saying, if the sin increases, right? The spot increases, the black spot. And it's becoming darker and darker, right? And then he said, that is the wrong that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in Surah Al-Mutaffifin, where he said, كَلَّا بَلْ رَانَ عَلَىٰ قُلُوبِهِمْ مَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. That most definitely, that is the wrong on their hearts, that darkness on their hearts is because of what they used to do. كَلَّا بَلْ رَانَ عَلَىٰ قُلُوبِهِمْ, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Mutaffifin, He's talking about these cheaters, these people who are cheating in business, right? And these people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes them as, they don't even expect to stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أَلَا يَظُنُّ أُولَٰئِكَ أَنَّهُمْ مَبْعُوثُونَ. They don't, they forgot about the akhirah. لِيَوْمٍ عَظِيمٍ يَوْمَ يَقُومُ النَّاسُ لِرَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. On the day when the people will stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the record, right, of evil deeds. And then He says the reason for all this, right, and these are, what type of fitna is this? Shahwa or shubha? This is a shubha, right? These people are starting having doubts and misunderstandings about the reality of this life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the reason for that, رَانَ عَلَىٰ قُلُوبِهِمْ. The reason for that is the ran on their hearts. كَلَّا بَلْ رَانَ عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ مَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. And the word يَكْسِبُونَ is very interesting, because it didn't say يَفْعَلُونَ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't just randomly put words. And we'll talk about this later in another ayah. But here, this what they used to earn, right? Yaksib. And yaksib, usually someone has to put a lot of effort for it, right? You have to actually put some effort, and you have to have like that's your intention, right? Because there's a difference. Person might do a sin out of ghafla, out of ignorance, right? Out of carelessness, right? And that's it's from our nature. No one's perfect. But someone might have a plan to do an evil deed. Like he woke up this morning and he left his house just to go do that evil deed. So there's a difference there. There's a difference there. طيب. Now let's talk about the signs of a sick heart. Okay? So now we talked about how the heart gets sick, and we kind of went deep into it. Now what are some of the signs of a sick heart? Now, back to the body, because the body is a great example. We talk about the body and we can kind of compare. Our bodies, if we just leave them like this, a lot of us would be in the hospital right now. Right? And most of us will do like at least a yearly checkup. Right? Some of us will do monthly checkup. Some of us check their teeth like on a monthly basis. Some of us will check their their heart, their kidneys, blood work, you name it, everything. They'll do everything. They'll do all these checkups. Why? Because they're making sure that the body doesn't get sick. So the same thing, the heart needs checkups, right? We need to do checkups on our body, on our heart. We need to do checkups on our heart and make sure that the heart is not sick and the heart hasn't died, right? Because a person, if he doesn't do these things, he can go to the doctor. All of a sudden, he tells him, "Listen, you have a really bad sickness, right? And you have 2 years to live." And he didn't know it. And of course, just like how our body speaks to us when we're sick, our body tells us that it's sick, doesn't it? Like if you're, if you have a sickness, if you have a flu, your body tells you have a flu, right? You have a runny nose, you feel tired, you start sneezing. These are signs that the body is sick. And just like the body has signs and symptoms that shows it that it's sick, so does the heart. The heart, from the people's actions, you can tell whether it's sick or healthy. So we're going to talk about that, bi'idhnillah. And now, of course, as we mentioned before, which one should have the priority here, right? The heart. The heart should have the priority. And why is it more of an obligation for us to check our hearts and to make sure that the heart is sound, right? Because number one, as we mentioned before, it is the place where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks, right? And just step back for a second and think about this. This is the place where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks at our hearts first, right? Now, before you came here, you got yourself ready. You looked in the mirror, you brushed your hair, you made sure you look good, right? We always do that. We make sure that we look good. Why? So people don't, so people don't get, don't say things about us, right? So we look professional, we look good, right? But what about our hearts? When is the last time we kind of checked it and made sure that it looks good, right? Imagine that our hearts had smells. Right? If you had a bad smell, you wouldn't have come here. You would make sure you had a shower and you put some deodorant or perfume. But what about our hearts? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking at our hearts every day, every time, right? And it could be really dark and filthy and dirty and sick or even dead. And we don't even think about that. We don't even think about that. So that's the number one reason why. So that's the number one reason why it is an obligation for us first to check our hearts. So we said that it's the place where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks first, right? إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَنْظُرُ إِلَىٰ صُوَرِكُمْ وَلَكِنْ يَنْظُرُ إِلَىٰ قُلُوبِكُمْ وَأَعْمَالِكُمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't look at your deeds and how you look. First, He looks at your heart. He looks at your heart, right? Number one. Number two is because it's the source of our actions. And we said that the heart is the king. And our actions depend on the health of our heart. How well is our heart doing? How sound is our heart? that will affect what we do with our limbs. That will affect what we do with our limbs. If your heart is sick, your heart's going to tell your hands not to pick up the Quran, right? If your heart is sick, it will tell you, you know what, don't go to the masjid to pray. Just pray. If your heart is sick, it will tell your body, you know what, there's like 2 hours left till salah, just wait till the last minute. You know, all these things. If your heart is sick, it will tell you, you know what, next Ramadan is going to be too difficult, maybe we shouldn't pray, or we shouldn't fast. You know, so the heart is really important, right? This is the source of our actions. Number 3, our happiness depends on it. And I didn't mention last week, but our happiness depends on our hearts, right? As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبِ. The hearts find tranquility with the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we'll talk about this a bit later. And last thing is our salvation depends on our heart. And we said that last time in the dua of Ibrahim, وَلَا تُخْزِنِي يَوْمَ يُبْعَثُونَ. Oh Allah, do not humiliate me on the day of judgment. Right? The one who meets Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with a sick heart, Allah will humiliate him. And so Ibrahim said, oh Allah, do not humiliate me on the day of judgment. يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ. The day when money and children will not benefit the person illa, except مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ, except the one who meets Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with a sound heart. Okay, so that's why the heart is like the most important thing. Even before our bodies. It doesn't mean you go out smelling bad and looking bad, but we need to put that effort to look at our hearts and do checkups, okay? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Ra'd, this is a very popular ayah, where He says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't change the condition of a qawm, of a people, until they change what's inside of them. Until they change what's inside of them. And it's interesting, He said, what's inside of them, right? And some ulama, they said here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about their hearts, people's hearts. They need to focus on that first, right? When you change yourself and your attitude and your behavior, then you'll be able to change the behavior of your children, your spouse, your family, your close family, then your community. And that's how change happens, right? And that's how change happens. If there was an epidemic in Calgary, for example, if there was an epidemic, whatever it is, swine flu or whatever, like a disease or a sickness, or a virus is spread, and we wanted to get rid of it, right? What's the first thing that we have to do? I'm asking you guys, what's the first thing that has to be done?
Quarantine.
What is it?
Quarantine.
Quarantine, okay, yeah, that's true. What else? Because as we mentioned before, sometimes people might be sick and don't even know it. So what's the first thing they need to do? They need to recognize that if they're sick or not, right? So first, the person has to know if they're sick or not, right? And how do you do that? Testing, right? You have to examine yourself, right? Because many times there's like a virus and people don't even know it, right? People don't even know it. That's why, sometimes you can't even travel until you're tested. So the first thing is the person has to recognize that they're sick. And why am I mentioning this is because many people, right, they think they're fine. They're like, I'm fine, alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me wealth, I have, my family's good, I'm praying, I go to Jum'ah, okay, I might miss some salawat, but I'm fine. And what do we usually do when it comes to religion? We compare ourselves with like the people who are less than us, right? So we might say, oh, at least I don't drink, at least, I don't miss Jum'ah prayer like that guy. At least, we always do that. And when it comes to worldly things, we compare ourselves with people who have more. When the Prophet told us to do the opposite. When it comes to worldly things, look at the ones, below you, who have less than you. So you can be thankful. And when it comes to the religiosity of people, and when it comes to the deen, you should look at people who have more than you. So you can be encouraged to go there, to get to that level. So many people, they have that thing, and we mentioned last week that one of the ulama said that one of the root causes of all the diseases is when someone thinks he's self-sufficient and he's fine. He's like, I'm fine, I don't have any problems. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him, and what does He say? يَقُولُ رَبِّي أَكْرَمًا, Surah Al-Fajr, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has honored me, I'm fine, and he thinks that, everything Allah has given him is, he deserves it, right? So the first thing is the person has to recognize he's sick, and he has to admit that he's sick, right? Then he can go to the next step. If you don't admit that you're sick, then you can't go forward, right? You're not gonna accept any cures, and you can't go forward from that, and you're gonna stay sick, right? If a patient goes to a doctor, and the doctor tells him, listen, you have high blood pressure, and he's like, yeah, whatever, right? And he just goes on with his life. What's gonna happen? Oh, he might drop dead in a few weeks, right? Same thing here. Our hearts. Some people, their hearts might be sick, and they're getting reminders, and they're just ignoring them, and their hearts might just be sealed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might seal their hearts because of them rejecting things over and over. So the first thing that needs to be done is you need to recognize and admit that you have a sickness, right? The second thing is the intention to change, right? And a person has to want that. The person has to, reflect on this and say, listen, I want to heal my heart. I want to clean my heart from all these sins and all this wrong, right? That's going to affect me in this life. It's going to take away from my happiness, and it's going to ruin me on the Day of Judgment, right? So the first is recognizing that the person is sick, and the second thing is that the person needs to make an intention, and the person needs to humble himself in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ask Him for guidance. And subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows our nature, and He actually made us do this. In Surah Al-Fatiha, what do we ask? What do we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala every time we read Surah Al-Fatiha? Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. Right? How many times do you say that? Minimum 17 times. If you're just praying the fard, minimum you're saying that 17 times. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. Guide us to the straight path. Right? And then there's people walking around saying, I'm guided, I'm fine, I don't need anything. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even between the rak'ah, like you just finished one rak'ah, and then you're asking Allah for guidance again. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. Why? In the middle of the salah, someone might have said, oh, look at me, I'm praying. Right? Riya might come in. Showing off might come in. Or other things might come in. And so we're reminded that we need to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for guidance all the time. We need to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for guidance all the time. Now, another question is, when exactly do you know if, when we look at the body, for example, when do you know if, for example, your stomach is sick, or your hand, your hand is sick, or maybe your heart is sick, or your kidneys are sick, right? We know it's sick when it's not doing what it's supposed to do, correct? So if the heart's supposed to be pumping blood and it's not pumping enough blood, we know that there's a problem, right? If the kidneys are not doing what they're supposed to be doing, we know there's a problem. If your eyes, if you can't see properly, we know there's a problem, right? Same thing with the heart. If the heart is not doing what it's supposed to be doing, then we know there's a problem, right? And now the person has to ask himself, what is the heart supposed to be doing? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us, and we all know this verse, that وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. That the only reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us is so that we can worship Him, right? And who's the one that tells the limbs to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Is the heart, the Malik, the king, right? And when it comes to worship, we don't just worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with our limbs. We worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with our hearts as well. How do we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with our hearts? Who can tell me? How do you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with our hearts? Anybody have an idea? How do you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with your heart?
Love.
Love, okay, صح. So loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a type of ibadah. Right? The love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَشَدُّ حُبًّا لِلَّهِ. The ones who have iman have the strongest love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So things like, رغبة, رهبة, shukr, tawakkul, raja, rida, shukr, tawbah, the hubb of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, dhikrullah, all these things, these are acts of worship that are done by the heart first. These are acts of worship that are done by the heart, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one that knows them. And subhanAllah, it is these things that are the source of happiness. People always are looking for happiness and all these things. They try to run after worldly items that are temporary and only gives them pleasure for a few moments, and then it's gone, and they keep chasing this happiness, right? And they're trying to feed the body when in reality they should be feeding what? They should be feeding the heart. They're feeding the body all this time looking for happiness when the happiness really lies in another place, right? The happiness lies in the heart. The happiness lies in the heart. One of the ulama, he said, ما سبقكم أبو بكر بكثرة صوم ولا صلاة. One of the salaf, the early scholars, he said, Abu Bakr was never first in terms of his status, because of his good deeds and everything. He was never first because of the amount of fasting and prayer that he did. That's not what took him to the highest, right? Above all of the Sahaba and above all of the people except the prophets. That's not what took him there. It's not the amount of fasting and prayer that he did, right? وَإِنَّمَا سَبَقَكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ وَقَرَ فِي صَدْرِهِ. Yeah? وَإِنَّمَا سَبَقَكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ وَقَرَ فِي صَدْرِهِ. The reason why he was ahead of everybody is because there was something in his heart, right? There was something in his heart, right? And everybody's, someone might have shukr, someone might have rida, like he's content with what Allah gave him. Someone might have tawakkul, someone might have khashya, or fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they're not the same level, right? Sabr of this person is not the same sabr of that person. Someone is patient, for something very easy. Someone's patient, for example, Ramadan and Maghrib is at 6 o'clock. It's not like the one who's patient and Maghrib is at 10, right? And things like that, right? The tawakkul of one person who has a lot of money is not like the tawakkul of the person who has a little bit of money, right? It depends on everybody. The shukr of somebody who has a lot is not like the shukr of one who has no hands and no eyes and he can't see, right? The shukr of the one who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took a lot from him is much higher, much greater. So these things change. And Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, he said, how many people pray all night, and finish the Quran multiple times, while others do less acts of worship and they are better in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and even they're more beneficial to people, to the ummah. Why? So we learn from these statements that the heart is the foundation, and that foundation can amplify something, can amplify what you do, whether it's good or bad. So if the foundation is very strong, it can amplify something small, and it can be very effective, and depending on the ikhlas, the sincerity that a person has, right? And we know the story of those three who were stuck in the cave, right? And the rock was blocking the way, right? And they had each one of them, they said, let's all remember a deed that we did it only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And they remembered that deed and said, oh Allah, if this was done for your sake, help us get out of here. And the rock would move. And then the second person, the rock would move, right? These are things that were purely done for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Purely done for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these acts of worship of the heart have different levels, right? Have different levels. So now let us examine our hearts and talk about these signs of a sick heart. And there's 5 of them. Okay? There's 5 signs of a sick heart. Inshallah, we'll go through these and we'll finish bi'idhnillah. So what are the 5 signs of a sick heart? Okay? And there could be more, but these are kind of the main ones that the ulama talk about. So the number 1 sign of a sick heart, right? So now we want to put ourselves to the test, okay? And every single one of us here should look into these and see how we're doing, right? This is your monthly checkup, okay? So number 1 sign of a sick heart is that the person with a sick heart, he dislikes the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? He doesn't like obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He finds it difficult, right? Like the heaviest thing for him is doing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded him to do, or staying away from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded him to do. He finds it a burden. right? He finds what should be something that he enjoys a burden. Right? And the Prophet ﷺ, what would he say to Bilal? أَرِحْنَا بِهَا يَا Bilal. When the time of prayer came, he would say, أَرِحْنَا بِهَا يَا Bilal. Make the adhan so we can have comfort in the salah. Right? Because salah was something that they would run to. They would enjoy their salah. Right? But now many of us, right, salah becomes a torture. Salah becomes a torture and we try to just quickly get it done. Right? And so, this person dislikes the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He finds it hard. And if he has to do it, he's very lazy. Right? He finds it very difficult to do. When Ramadan comes, when the people of Iman are saying, Alhamdulillah, Ramadan is here, is a chance for us, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive all our sins and all these benefits of Ramadan, what's he thinking about? Oh my God, another year, we can't eat till 10, and this, and he's very upset, and he's very sad, right? And he's trying to find a way to get out of it. Maybe he wants to do vacation in one of those countries that Maghrib is at like 5, right? He doesn't enjoy it, and he dislikes it. The ulama, they give an example here. They said, they give an example of food. Imagine you have a lot of food here, rice, chicken, everything, salads, right? And then you have this one person who eats everything and is full, right? What do we say about that person? And he's healthy, he's fine, right? And then there's a person, as he's coming, he smells the smell, he's like, I don't want to eat this. And he sees, that's too much sugar, this is cholesterol, this is that, I can't eat this, I can't eat that, right? What would you say about that person? His body's sick, he can't even take anything. Oh, I'm allergic to this, I'm allergic to that, right? Is the problem with the food? Is the issue the food? The food is fine, the other guy ate it, he's still alive. But the problem here is not the food. The problem is the person. The problem is the heart of the person. Right? The ibadah is not the problem. Right? And if someone said that there was a problem in ibadah, then he would have some major shubuhat. Right? He would have some major problem in his heart. That we don't need to pray, or this prayer is a waste of time, and things like that. And some Muslims have gone to that level. Right? Have gone to that level because they just ignored these things over and over. And sometimes, people, when they have to do something like salah, or they read Quran or something, they do it in a very lazy manner. Right? So one time, I was praying with some people, and the imam was about to lead, and one of the people said, please don't read Surah Al-Baqarah. He's like, don't read Surah Al-Baqarah, right? Like he was sitting down watching TV for an hour, but when it came to prayer, he's like, please just read like Surah Al-Baqarah, something like that. Right? He doesn't enjoy prayer. Right? He doesn't enjoy prayer, and he doesn't even try to enjoy it. There's a difference. Someone might be trying to enjoy it, and he's struggling, but then this person is like, khalas. He absorbed this fitna, and he's like, khalas, salah is a waste of time, it's boring. And that's a very dangerous place to be. A very dangerous place to be. Right? And here also it's good to know that there's a difference between being a slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? There's a difference between a person being, a true slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and someone who says, I just worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Someone who's a true slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he's submitted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he does exactly what Allah tells him, and he stays away from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him to stay away from. Other people might just worship Allah according to what's easy for them. وَمِنْهُمْ مَن يَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ عَلَى حَرْفٍ. Right? Some people, they worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when it's convenient for them. Right? They'll stay away from the mortgage if they don't have the money. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them money, right, they're tested with the money, then they're like, oh, you know what, subhanAllah, it's difficult times. And they start making excuses for themselves, and then they'll get it. Right? And things like that. Right? And so, when we say, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ in Surah Al-Fatiha, again, subhanAllah, everything goes to Al-Fatiha. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. To you, O Allah, we enslave ourselves. Right? To you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we enslave ourselves. وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. Once the person has fully enslaved himself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then the person can ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help. وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ. And isti'ana in Arabic is not just asking for help. Isti'ana has another meaning, which means you're actually putting an effort and then asking for help. Right? You're putting effort. Isti'ana is when the person is putting effort and then he's asking for help. Right? Like if you had a flat tire, for example, right, and you call someone for help, if you're sitting in the back seat, drinking, having some food, and the guy comes and you're like, okay, there's the wrench, there's that, go ahead and do it. That's not isti'ana. And that guy's going to leave you. But if someone comes to, you call someone for help, and you're already working on it, you're putting the effort, and then he comes, helps you to push it and lift it, that would be isti'ana. That would be isti'ana. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after we fully enslaved ourselves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. After we fully enslave ourselves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أُدْخُلُوا فِي السِّلْمِ كَافَّةً. Yani when you enter Islam, when you decide to be a Muslim, you enter fully, 100%. Not you pick this and this and this, right? When you become a Muslim, you fully submit it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And there's that 6 mad, right? Kaffa, right? And that has an effect also on the meaning, right? So that's number 1, right? He dislikes obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He has a problem with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala having full kind of, being fully a slave to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And really, someone might say, wait a second, being a slave, that's a weakness. But that's a misunderstanding. And that's a misunderstanding because of what we know about slavery and what we've seen about slavery. But the only free person, the only truly free person is the one who enslaves himself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The one who created everything. Because if you're not enslaving yourself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're enslaving yourself to your desires, you're enslaving yourself to wealth, you're enslaving yourself to other things in this world. Right? And who's better? The one who enslaves himself to something that was created and it's gonna go, or someone who enslaves himself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most powerful, the one who's gonna reward him, the one who's gonna give him Jannah. Right? Who's the one that's free? Right? When you think about it that way, it's very simple. Right? And a person shouldn't be humiliated or feel humiliated because he says, I'm Abdullah, I'm the slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rather, he should be proud of that. He should be proud of that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, the ulama said, sign of a sick heart is he likes to do sin. He likes to do sin. Right? And we said that there's a difference. Someone makes sin out of ignorance or out of ghafla or out of heedlessness. He's in the middle of something and he does it and then he repents. There's a difference. But then there's a person who does it and then he enjoys it and then he does it again and he enjoys it, right? And he starts enjoying it and he starts absorbing that sin, right? And here's a good kind of philosophical question. Why do people sin? Why is it that people like to do these things? Why? I'm asking you guys. Why do people like to sin and do these crazy things? Why? What are they looking for? Pleasure. Yeah, pleasure. Yeah, desire, all these things. They're looking for pleasure. Yeah? They're looking for happiness, right? And here's where the problem comes. They're confusing, happiness with pleasure. They're two different things. Happiness is not pleasure, right? You can get pleasure by many things in this life, right? You can get pleasure. Yeah, iPhone 7 comes out, you buy it, you get pleasure, but what happens after a couple of days, couple of months? It's just another phone. You get a BMW, brand new BMW, you got that pleasure. After a couple of months, it's just another car. And then what do you want? You want the next one, and the next one. And that's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created this materialistic life, right? And so they mix this thing and they keep looking for their happiness going after material things. What happens? They go from this thing to the other thing. They buy a small house and then a bigger house and then this and a car and a bigger car and they get a job and they get income and more income and more income. Right? The Prophet said, the son of Adam, he will never be satisfied until dirt is put into his mouth. If he has one mountain of gold, what does he want? The second one. And then he wants the third one. And the only thing that will satisfy him is dirt in his mouth. Yeah? the only thing that will keep him shut is like death, basically. Right? This is the person who's misguided, who has no guidance. The human being that has no guidance. So people confuse pleasure with happiness, right? So yes, you can please your body. You know, your nafs is always going to tell you this. And Islam doesn't stop the person from getting pleasure. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put limits. And when the person transgresses those limits, okay, then it's negatively affecting his heart. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He knows our nature, He created us. أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who created us. So He knows what we need. So He gave us halal avenues for everything that we need. Right? But human beings, from their tama', we said, you know, their greed, they always want to transgress. Always want more and more and more. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us remedies in the Quran, إِلَّا الْمُصَلِّينَ or إِلَّا مُتَصَدِّقِينَ and things like that. Right? And so happiness, where is the happiness? You want happiness, you have to take care of your heart. You have to feed this heart. And that's where happiness comes from. It doesn't come from wealth. Right? And we've seen people have a lot of wealth, they're not happy. Right? They're not happy. But some people have wealth and they're very happy. Like Uthman radiallahu anhu. He had a lot of wealth. He was very rich. Right? But he was very happy. Right? He was very happy. So let's not confuse any. Wealth is not evil. It's just the one who holds it. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Baqarah, when He's talking about Bani Israel, He says, بَلَى مَنْ كَسَبَ سَيِّئَةً وَأَحَاطَتْ بِهِ خَطِيئَتُهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ أَصْحَابُ النَّارِ هُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we know, Surah Al-Baqarah, the first juz talks a lot about Bani Israel and everything they kind of went through, right? And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is talking about a group of people, you know, they read the book of Allah, the Torah, but it doesn't affect them, right? They just read it, yeah? وَمِنْهُمْ أُمِّيُّونَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ الْكِتَابَ إِلَّا أَمَانِيَّ وَإِنْهُمْ إِلَّا يَظُنُّونَ. Like they just read it, and they have a lot of like guessing about what the religion's about, right? And then, you know, when it's told to them that, oh, you know, this is going to take you to the hellfire, what do they say? Oh, we're only going to go to the hellfire maybe a day or a few days, and then we're going to go out, right? We talked about that. They think they're all self-sufficient and they're all good, right? Then they're all safe. Yeah, and another ayah, they said, we're the children of Allah. You know, Allah would not hurt us. Things like that. These things start creeping in. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, no. Bala. Man kasaba sayyi'atan. Whoever. And we go back to the word kasaba. Yeah? كَلَّا بَلْ رَانَ عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ مَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. That word kasaba, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, بَلَا مَنْ كَسَبَ سَيِّئَةً وَأَحَاطَتْ بِهِ خَطِيئَةٌ. Right? Whoever earns evil and his sin kind of surrounds him and encompasses him, those are the companions of the fire, هُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدٌ. They will be in it eternally. So here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't say, بَلَا مَنْ فَعَلَ سَيِّئَةً. He said, بَلَا مَنْ كَسَبَ سَيِّئَةً. And this is the person who goes and actually puts effort in getting sins, right? And sometimes people start with just a mistake, and then they start getting addicted to it, right? Remember, when the heart absorbs this, becomes a small black dot, and then bigger and bigger and bigger if he doesn't make repentance. So this person absorbs it, and then he keeps doing it, and then he falls in love with the sin. He actually falls in love with the sin. So Allah says, "Bala man kasiba sayyi'atan wa ahatat bihi khati'at." The person who kind of absorbs it. Right? And how many people become addicted to sinning? People become addicted to zina. People become addicted to pornography. People become addicted to backbiting. People become addicted to everything. Right? And they can't control themselves. Right? Because their heart like absorbed it. Right? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأَحَاطَتْ بِهِ خَطِيئَتُهُ. Ahatat, like it encircled him. Imagine like a wall around him. Like, as if there's no way out for him now. And the heart might be sealed because of him like just falling in love with this sin. So it's a very dangerous thing. Yeah, so tawbah here is very, very important. When we're going to talk about the cures, this is like number one cure that we'll be talking about, inshallah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah An-Nisa regarding tawbah, He says, إِنَّمَا التَّوْبَةُ عَلَى اللَّهِ لِلَّذِينَ يَعْمَلُونَ السُّوءَ بِجَهَالَةٍ ثُمَّ يَتُوبُونَ مِنْ قَرِيبٍ فَأُولَٰئِكَ يَتُوبُ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ وَكَانَ اللَّهُ عَلِيمًا حَكِيمًا. That repentance is accepted by Allah only for those who do it out of ignorance and out of carelessness. We talked about this. This is in Surah An-Nisa. Tawbah is accepted from people who do this out of ignorance and carelessness. right? And then they repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those are the ones who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives. Those are the ones who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives. Right? So the most important thing is that when a person does it and he's still kind of not enjoying it, that's when he needs to do tawbah. Because if he keeps doing it and the heart kind of absorbs it and starts enjoying it, then the person's in trouble. Then that's like a big red flag. That's a big red flag. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. Number 3. So number 3 from the signs is that he doesn't like the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He doesn't like dhikrullah. He doesn't like it. Right? He doesn't enjoy it. He doesn't say Bismillah when he eats. He doesn't do his morning afkar. He doesn't, and the Prophet ﷺ has taught us to remember Allah almost in everything that we do. Getting dressed, leaving the house, entering the masjid, all these things. He doesn't enjoy it. Like he doesn't see benefit from it. Who cares how we remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about the hypocrites, right? He says, في قلوبهم مرض. في قلوبهم مرض. فزادهم الله مرضا. This is in Surah Al-Baqarah. And then when he talks about them in Surah Al-Munafiqeen, in Surah Al-Munafiqun, he says, إن المنافقين يخادعون الله وهو خادعهم. That the hypocrites, they think they're deceiving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because what are they doing? They hide their kufr. Their disbelief they try to hide it, but outside, they act like believers. Right? So they think they deceive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وهو خادعهم. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who knows. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not get tricked like that. وَإِذَا قَامُوا إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ. When they get up for prayer, قَامُوا كُسَالًا. قَامُوا كُسَالًا. يُرَاءُونَ النَّاسَ وَلَا يَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. So the hypocrites, when they get up for salah, and this is very, very scary ayah, because Allah is saying that the hypocrites are actually praying, right? And the leader of the hypocrites would be in the first line, by the Prophet ﷺ. The leader of the hypocrites, right? He would be there. And so Allah said, when they get up for salah, they get up lazy. Yeah. Why do they pray? يُرَاءُونَ النَّاسِ. They want to show off to people, right? They just go there so people don't talk about them. Oh, that person didn't pray. Because in that time, if you didn't pray, it's something serious. If you didn't show up to prayer, it's something serious. Now maybe khalas, because subhanAllah, not many people go to the masjid, or in a bad state. If someone doesn't come, khalas, it's like normal. But back there, if someone doesn't come to jama'ah salah and the adhan is heard, right, he must be sick. Sick in his body, right? The only other reason is that he's sick in his heart. That's the only other reason. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and when they pray, they only remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a little bit. وَلَا يَذْكُرُونَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. Right? وَلَا يَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. Very little. Yeah. Why should someone enjoy the dhikr of Allah? Well, why should a believer enjoy the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Why? Why do you guys think so? Yeah, تطمئن القلوب. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تطمئن القلوب. That verily in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, hearts find tranquility. They find peace. SubhanAllah, you could be going through the toughest time in your life, right? And you open the Quran, you read the dua, you remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you remember what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you, and then just that tranquility comes. It's priceless. You can't buy it. Money can't buy that. Right? It's something that you have between yourself and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that can give you the biggest pleasure ever. Right? That's where pleasure comes from. When someone is happy. When someone's happy with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is happy with him, right? That's where enjoyment comes. And many of the ulama have said that, the person should do his best to feed his heart, feed his soul with the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even if initially he's not enjoying it. Right? Do your best to kind of understand what you're doing. And remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and remembering His creation, right? And slowly you will start to kind of appreciate it. Person will start to kind of appreciate it and actually enjoy it, right? Enjoy His ibadah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Zumar, وَإِذَا ذُكِرَ اللَّهُ وَحْدَهُ شْمَأَزَّتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ شْمَأَزَّتْ قُلُوبُ الَّذِينَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْآخِرَةِ. When Allah is remembered, when the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioned, Allah is talking about the people who have shubuhat, diseases in their heart. They don't believe in the Day of Judgment. When the name of Allah is mentioned, اشْمَأَزَّتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ. Their hearts, they become very kind of tight. like very annoyed, very kind of disgusted. Yeah? Yeah. وَإِذَا ذُكِرَ الَّذِينَ مِن دُونِهِ إِذَا هُمْ يَسْتَبْشِرُونَ. MashaAllah, when something else is mentioned, they're happy. Yeah? You sit down with them and they start backbiting someone or talking about people, they can sit there for an hour. They can talk all day, right? You're talking about like an NBA game, football game, they can stay off 3 hours. But when someone says, let's talk about this verse or let's remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they're like, you know what, forget this, right? Of course, there's nothing wrong with watching a game or whatever, but when someone does this, right, he gets really annoyed from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's a problem. That's a problem. That's a sign that the person is, that the heart is sick. Uthman radiallahu anhu said something very amazing, right? This should be like written in gold. He said, لو طهرت قلوبنا لما شبعت من كلام ربنا. He said, لو طهرت قلوبنا لما شبعت من كلام ربنا. That if the hearts were really pure, yeah, it's like a big test. If the hearts were really pure, they wouldn't be full from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from the Quran. Yeah? How many of us, we open the Quran, we like read 5 ayat and we're like, already like we want to close it. And then we're like looking how long the surah, how many more pages left? 1, 2, 3, and you just want to close it. Right? And others whose hearts are sound and healthy, they'll open the Quran, keep reading and reading, and they don't even know the time. An hour passes by and they didn't even realize. Right? So Uthman was saying that if our hearts were really pure, then we would not be, we would not get enough of the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're just wanting more and more and more. Right? So this is a big test. This is a big test for us to see. The poet, he says, إن كنت تزعم حبي فلما هجرت كتابي. إن كنت تزعم حبي فلما هجرت كتابي. If you claim that you love me, if you're claiming that you love me, then why did you leave my book? فلما هجرت كتابي. أما تأملت ما فيه من لذيذ خطابي. Haven't you contemplated what is in it from the pleasant speech in it? This is talking about the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you claim to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then why aren't you pleased with reading His words? We claim, if I ask everybody here, do you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? We say yes. But how come we don't enjoy the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How come we don't put effort to read that? So that is a big, big litmus test right there. Right? And of course the person, if he's struggling right now, he's not going to pick up the Quran and then his heart's going to melt. It's going to take time. And of course, the person asks for guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he slowly starts to read, and if he doesn't understand Arabic language, he gets a translation, right? It's not an excuse, because many people who speak Arabic, the heart just goes, the Quran goes from here and then leaves from here. Right? So, that's not an excuse. Number 4, and we'll finish this quickly. Number 4, he doesn't like good gatherings. The person whose heart is sick, he doesn't like good gatherings. He doesn't like gatherings where Allah and His Messenger are mentioned. He doesn't like gatherings like this. He finds it a waste of time. Why should I come to the halaqa? Why should I sit? Right? Gatherings where angels are there. He finds them like a waste of time. He gets annoyed. In Salat al-Jum'ah, he's sleeping. He just goes there so his co-worker doesn't say, why don't you go to Jum'ah? He's sleeping in Salat al-Jum'ah. Usually the only time the person gets a reminder. He's sleeping. And so they don't enjoy these gatherings, right? And that's a big problem. That's just gonna kind of, now he's never gonna get remembrance. He's never gonna be able to wake up, right? So that's number 4. Number 5, he doesn't like the people, he doesn't like people of khair, people of good. He doesn't like them. He always talks bad about people who do khair. He doesn't like the scholars. You see people making fun of ulama. Because of an opinion maybe. Right? These people did a lot of work and they did ijtihad. And they did the research. Right? And then someone comes along who doesn't know much. Oh, that guy doesn't know anything. Right? And they talk about them. And when they see a da'i or a scholar or a sheikh, it's like they've seen a lion. They're really agitated. Right? They don't like these people. They don't like people who do, they do charities and things like that, things that benefit the community. They're always talking about them. Oh, what's this guy doing wasting our money? Oh, these guys are always doing this, taking our money. Oh, right? They're always talking bad about people that do good. Right? And so that's the number 5 sign. So let's just quickly talk about, quickly review the 5. So the first sign, we said that he dislikes the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the first sign of a sick heart. The second sign is he enjoys and he likes doing sin. He likes to sin, right? And we said the third one is he doesn't like the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He doesn't like it. Number 4, he doesn't like good gatherings, right? And number 5, he doesn't like the people of good. He doesn't like people of khair, people who do good in the community, right? Ulama and things like that. And philanthropists and people who do charities and things in the community. And just a disclaimer here, and we're learning these signs not to start labeling people, right? We got to make sure that our hearts kind of step back and we look in the mirror. This is for us to examine ourselves. Every one of us here should examine themselves. Not to, in your head now, you shouldn't be like, oh, that's my cousin right there, that's my uncle right there. You shouldn't be doing this. You make sure, fight that. Make sure you fight that. And you focus on yourself. Right? You focus on yourself. It doesn't mean you can't advise people, right? But the first focus should be yourself. Right? The first focus should be yourself. And I want to finish with this hadith. Somebody asked Salama, who was one of the wives of the Prophet. He said, O mother of the believers, which supplication did the Messenger of Allah make frequently when he was in your house? Which dua did the Prophet make frequently when he was in your house? She said, he supplicated frequently, Ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qalbi ala dinik. Ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qalbi ala dinik. Yeah, and we should memorize this. Ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qalbi ala dinik. Which means, O controller of the hearts, make my heart steadfast on your religion. And this is the most dua that she used to hear from the Prophet. Right? This is his wife saying this. When he was over, the most dua that he would say is Allahumma ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qalbi ala dinik. So we say, Ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qulubana ala dinik. Oh Allah, make our hearts steadfast on your religion. On your religion. And we'll finish there. Inshallah, next week, we're going to talk about al-qalb al-salim. We mentioned this, and Ibrahim in the Surah Al-Shu'ara, he said, وَلَا تُخْزِنِ يَوْمَ يُبْعَثُونَ يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. Okay, this qalb salim. Okay, the only person saved on the day of judgment, saved from humiliation, is the one with a sound heart. What is this qalb salim? Yeah? There are 5 conditions for it. 5 conditions, 5 things that we find in a heart that is salim that the ulama have talked about. What are they? Inshallah, we'll talk about them next week, same place, Wednesday. وجزاكم الله خيرا وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.